Hey guys, coming at you with another Once Human video. This time, something a little bit different. Not a tutorial video like we've been doing. I wanted to make an early thoughts video on what's been happening in CBT3. There have been a lot of changes made, and a lot of them have been good, but some of them potentially have been bad as well. And I wanted to get an early thoughts video out there on what we've seen so far with the first phase starting to wrap up. And we're about to unlock new zones and new stuff and try to see where the progression of the game is going to go in terms of like the seasonal events and stuff like that. And I'll probably make some thoughts videos on that as well later on. Another thoughts video on like in-game and what differences between the seasons are occurring. But this is more of a general overall thoughts on the game and less about the season in particular. So we're just going to go over like a whole bunch of different things that I've noticed have changed. There are probably some things that I will miss, but this is going to be like a fairly comprehensive list, I think, of everything that I've noticed in the first, like say like 15 to 20 some odd hours of CBT3. The first thing I want to talk about is quality of life changes, and there have been a lot of these, a lot of really good ones. If you played the second closed beta, you might remember the gathering of all sorts, whether it was trees or nodes or anything like that, required you to keep hitting the button over and over again to continuously gather it, rather than just being able to hold it or even tap the button one time. This has been changed. Now you can just hit the button once and you will fully gather the node of whatever type. This is a huge quality of life change, I think, and not to be overlooked, because honestly it was a little fatiguing hitting the button over and over and over again in the last beta, and really kind of cut into the enjoyment factor of running around and gathering for long periods of time. So super happy to see that they changed this. They also drop you a motorcycle pretty early in the game for free. Not that crafting your first motorcycle was super hard in CBT2, but I did think this was still worth noting. It meant that like people were running around on a motorcycle very early in the game, which drastically probably sped up mobility for a lot of people, especially if you're brand new to the game and you didn't really know how to do all the building and all that stuff yet. All of a sudden now you have a motorcycle that you didn't even plan on having, and that just sort of sped up your progression a nice amount. I think that's a good change. I think it's kind of cool to have that thrown in there. It also kind of feels like there is more currency in this game, referred to as energy links. I remember struggling to have a decent amount of currency in the last beta. Now I feel like I have a pretty good amount of currency. I still have 30k. I'm not really struggling at all when it comes to having enough money currently. Now I'm not just going around and buying out all the blueprints and all that kind of stuff or anything, but I wasn't doing that last beta either, and I had to go and sell like pickaxes and fishing rods and stuff like that in order to have enough currency to do the stuff that I wanted to do. We had guides for that. Now I don't really feel like I need it so far, so it does feel like the currency is a little bit easier to obtain. There have been, and on that same note about currency being easier to obtain, another big change I want to talk about is difficulty. This could be considered a somewhat controversial topic, but the game is significantly easier in this closed beta than it was in the last. Things like corruption is much less of a problem to deal with, which, if you don't know what corruption is, it was the debuff that ate away a portion of your HP bar permanently, depending on the severity of the corruption in the area that you were in. I haven't really had any problems with that so far. The damage that the AI enemies seem to do seems much less. The damage you do seems higher. And just overall, everything feels much easier. And the place where this is really most apparent is on the bosses. It took about 500 to 1,000 rounds to kill the first boss in CBT2, and in this one it took maybe like 150, 200. Now, to some people that's going to be a good change, right? Because bullet sponginess is usually something that people complain about in these kind of games. They don't want things to feel like it takes a really, really long time to kill them. But when you combine bullet sponginess having gone down significantly with the fact that the boss was also doing significantly less damage, was dishing out significantly less corruption, it made the fight way easier and required way less coordination from the group, and just really didn't pose any danger at all. In fact, I'd say all the boss fights now are very easily soloable, even at current gear level, or maybe even a little bit under geared. I have heard people saying that they're going through areas 7, 8 levels below the enemies they're fighting and having absolutely no problems at all. And that pretty much tracks with what I've been experiencing as well. The need to upgrade your gear and your weapons as soon as you get to a new zone doesn't feel nearly as severe as it used to. Now, do I think this is a good or a bad thing? I think I'm kind of in the middle. I think on one hand, lowering the difficulty a bit, not necessarily a bad thing. The game was pretty difficult before, and that can be a barrier to entry to a lot of players. You know, even if it's not even a skill issue, like they're good enough at the game, it may also just be considered like too tedious because of how difficult it is and how carefully you had to play. And I certainly felt that way sometimes. Like sometimes the fact that I had to be extremely careful with how I cleared through an area, that I had to snipe enemies from really, really far away, or go totally silent with a crossbow to make sure I didn't draw too much aggro, and I had to play very careful, and sometimes the spawn rates are very high, creating like very stressful situations. Now, as a gamer who enjoys high difficulty, plays a lot of games on high difficulty, I kind of enjoyed that, but sometimes it was also a bit tedious and kind of annoying to deal with. So I can only imagine how that is for somebody who mostly plays games on like normal or even easy difficulty. And those people's experience is valid in the game as well. It's not all about the top 1% or 5 or 10% of players. You have to really account for everybody. But you don't want the game to be too easy either, right? And right now I feel like it is leaning a bit into the realm of being too easy. I hope they bring the bar back up some, but not quite as high as it was before, I think is where I would like to see it, somewhere in between. There is also a different seasonal progression for this season, different than last time. If you're familiar with the first season's goals, these are slightly different. You know, different events popping up, different progression to everything. We don't know what exactly all this stuff is going to materialize yet, obviously, because we're only in the first part. But this is a new season, so this is our first look at the game, actually getting to show you what a different season looks like. And I'm excited to go through it. I'm excited that they did add a different season with different milestones and different events that are going to happen. I think this is a good thing. Progression of the season also seems to be different depending on if you're on the PvP or PvE server. I am on the PvP server, so this is the PvP progression. These events marked with these skulls are, I believe, signifying PvP events. These do not show up on the PvE server. The zones that are locked and unlocked are also slightly different from what I remember seeing. So the progression of the server is overall just totally different, which is also kind of cool to see. Like if you're not big into PvP, your seasonal track is going to be slightly different. Or if you want to do PvP one season and then do PvE another season, maybe your friends don't want to play with you during a season, so you decide to go PvE or something like that, you're going to get a slightly different experience. Even some of the deviations, I have been told, the deviants are different. The fire-breathing dinosaur pet on the PvP servers is an offensive minion that fights with you, and I've been told on the PvE servers it's a pet that cooks for you. So there are even slight differences, it seems, in the deviations and what they do, which I think is a good thing. You know, having a slightly different experience is kind of exciting. It'll remain to be seen like how different these seasons are, whether they significantly change up the game, or whether there's like slightly different tweaks. But I was glad to see a different track happening and some variation there, and even the difference between PvP and PvE. Which leads us into another topic that I want to talk about, which is something that has been a big topic of discussion and somewhat controversy on the PvP server, which is the fact that this server has not been open PvP, which means that you cannot just kill anyone, anytime, anywhere. You do still retain the ability to flag up for PvP and engage in PvP with people who also flag up, or to PvP in the PvP enabled zones around the oil rigs or whatever you want to call them that gather the stardust and stuff like that. But there is no open world constant PvP happening. And that has been a big topic of discussion in the general chat back and forth, and you can already guess where that discussion goes. On one hand, there's the people who say, I want open PvP all the time, that's what I came to this game for, I want to be able to kill at any time, anywhere. And then you have people on the other side saying, all you want to do is gank people, you're just kind of a douche, like you don't actually want a PvP, you just want to like kill people that are weaker than you and like grief people and stuff like that. And, where do I fall on this? Well, I grew up on hardcore PvP. I did. I played games where killing your enemies, you could full loot all their equipment and take everything they had. The penalties were very stiff in some of the games I grew up playing. And I also grew up playing, World of Warcraft, Classic, where open PvP was allowed, even though the penalties were very, very light. So how do I feel about open PvP in a game like this? Ultimately, I feel like this game would not work great with fully open, always on PvP. I just don't think the world is set up well for it. I don't think there's enough dispersing of where people are. I think that sporadic open world PvP can be extremely fun. For example, my favorite PvP in World of Warcraft was always leveling PvP, just like out leveling your character and you randomly run into somebody and engage in a PvP fight. Those were always fun. Obviously, what was not fun was when a higher level would come through and one-shot you, right? But the reason I feel like it worked in World of Warcraft is because the zones were very big, they were very expansive, and there was always a lot of movement around the map, and you ended up in different locations depending on if you were Alliance or Horde, even within the same zone. So there wasn't like a necessarily like huge amount of like masses of people ending up in one spot being forced into conflict. Like it always just sort of happened in hot button areas that overlapped each other and was very sort of sporadic and organic, or you had to like go out of your way to like go over to where you knew they were doing quests and like seek them out. And that made it so it wasn't too overwhelming. Like you weren't constantly being assaulted on a PvP server for the most part. This game has no such setup. You're always around other players, you're always going to the same areas, doing the same zones, the same quest, and just the traffic density in areas is going to be too high, in my opinion, for constantly always on PvP. It's just going to result in a lot of like ganking, a lot of harassment, and a not so feel good experience. I just do not believe that the game is set up well for that type of PvP. So I am okay with open PvP not being turned on, even as a big fan of PvP. I just don't think it's going to add the right kind of enjoyment to it. So I think I'm fine with it. Honestly, I think I'm fine with it. Some people disagree. Some people in the chat definitely disagree. But I think also with the seasonal progressive nature of this and how long it takes to get through a full season, open PvP may see people being griefed off the server and quitting long before you get to the end. It's also something I'm concerned about. This isn't like Rust, where it's set up to be wiped every like week to 2 weeks, right? Where like you could just go in, like kill the hell out of each other, wipe the server, and it doesn't really matter. it matters in this game. Like, the progression is much slower, and there is a timeline of expected events that are supposed to happen. So I think it's a much bigger deal if people start flooding out of a server and the server dies, you know, halfway through a season. It's not going to be fun for anybody. So ultimately, yeah, I think open PvP is a no for me. The next thing I want to talk about is changes to deviants, most of which I think are good. Deviants in CBT2 had limited usefulness depending on the deviant. Some I just didn't use at all or used very rarely. They had very specific sort of things they fulfilled. This one, they feel a bit more useful and a bit more interactive. They removed the ability to charge your weapon using deviant power and give it additional characteristics, and they replaced that with now offensive deviants that operate sort of like pets or minions and will fight with you. They've also changed up the management of deviants, so they're much less finicky and annoying to deal with. So far anyway, there haven't been any huge bugs like I experienced last CBT where they jump out of their containments and mess up your base and cause all kinds of havoc. And their usefulness, I think, is much more like across the board. There's even some that just automatically gather resources for you. Like, there's a logging beaver, and there's a Digby boy that goes out and like mines materials and stuff for you. So there's a whole gambit between gadgets, offensive, defensive, base enhancing, you know, everything, you know, a much wider gambit of useful deviations are now in the game, and I like pretty much all the changes they've made with those. I think they just work better now. I think they're just much more approachable, and I'm a fan of it. I think it's good. There's also been changes to gun mods and the way gun mods work. It used to be the mods were specific to the type of gun. Now they're much more general. The bonuses can still be a little bit specific, but not as specific as they were, where it was like damage, at least not that I've seen, like damage up specifically for sniper rifle or damage up specifically for SMG. They're a little more just general now, like weapon damage up, damage against elites. Same thing with gear mods. Like, it used to be like, oh, you get like a helmet specific gear mod. Now they're just general. You know, they may have like melee damage, crit damage, weak spot damage, whatever bonuses on them, but now you can slot these into any piece. So it's not as specific as it used to be. I think some can still be somewhat specific, and maybe they'll get more specialized as we move into the orange or yellow quality mods. We're not far enough in the game yet to be able to see how specific they may get, but at least at the lower end, they're much more general. They've removed a lot of the very specific bonuses, which I think is mostly like a good thing. That means it's going to be easier to get like more ideal mods and to really get your build sort of online than it was before. You know, but it'll remain to be seen like how hard it is to get like really ideal mods, you know. But like, they have changed these systems up quite a bit, and I think again those are for the better. Accessory modding is still pretty much the same. Not a whole lot of changes here, if any. You still run around and unlock them just like you did in the last beta. Function seemingly pretty much the same. There also has been a significant expansion on the cosmetics system. You can still like get various cosmetics for different like slots of your character. That pretty much is the same, but they've also expanded a fair bit the cosmetic system for weapons, where now you're going to have the ability to get specific skins for the weapons, and also you can apply stickers to your weapons. And you can also like do paint jobs on the weapons, you know, change the specific, you can see here it's changing like the color of specific things on the weapon. So like there's a lot more customization of the weapons themselves. They added charms. All this stuff is, you know, it's flavor stuff, but it's kind of cool to see. I don't know if this is going to be like where monetization really starts to kick in, you know, where they're going to offer a lot of cosmetics in the shop and, you know, charge money for those. If they do, of course, that's perfectly fine. Pay for cosmetics are not a bad thing. You know, the developers got to make money too, but they have expanded on the system significantly. I haven't been able to unlock any skins or see how to unlock any skins or anything, but the UI is obviously in place for it. So that's, you know, cool to see. You know, look forward to, you know, I like to customize my character and the look of things, so I like cosmetic things like that. I'm a fan. They have also made some significant changes to memetics and what is essentially the progression of your character. The whole UI has been redone. The skills have been, in some cases, changed or shuffled around. The progression is different, whereas before each tier was unlocked by killing a specific boss. Now it's more tied to the progression of the season, which I think is sort of like a same thing, only different kind of change. But the trees themselves are more streamlined. There's less spread out points, which I'm hoping is going to mean that you could unlock more stuff or close to everything, whereas last beta you would run out of points and you couldn't get everything. It seems like now they've streamlined it quite a bit so that hopefully you'll have enough points. I'm not sure yet, because in addition to changing this whole tree progression, they also remove the ability, at least so far that I've seen, to get more memetic points by completing the world objectives and the world puzzles that you could previously do to unlock the boxes. So they've limited the amount of points you can get more and streamlined the trees. So I don't know if they're just shooting for like an overall goal of like you can unlock like 75% of the tree and no more, or whether this change means you're going to be able to unlock everything. I'm kind of hoping it means you'll be able to unlock everything if you hit max level, but I just don't know yet. Not until we get everything unlocked and we can kind of see how it's going. Part of me thinks that you're still not going to be able to unlock everything, though. That is my inclination. The other major change they made was memetic mastery. These are specializations that are seemingly random. They unlock every 5 levels, and you'll get a choice of 4 different specializations to choose from. This is an interesting concept. On one hand, it's not game changing, but on another hand, it kind of is game changing. Some of the masteries you can get are very strong and very good and very convenient. This first one is a good example already. This allows me to increase the performance of my pickaxe by 25% when I'm mining just about every ore that is important, right? So, and that's just during the day, and at night it doubles and goes to a 50% yield. So if I mine at night, I'm getting 50% more resources per node than a player who doesn't have this upgrade. That is not a insignificant amount of difference, right? And for example, this one as well. Facility boost, supplies workbench HP recovery plus 10%, and crafting activators output plus 1. So not only am I getting more healing than you if I have this, I'm also crafting way more of them. I'm doubling my output over you. That is significant. That is a significant amount of difference. This one as well, like we needed to use portable machine gun turrets in the hardest content and in-game in CBT2. By having this, my turrets now have more HP and deal 30% more damage and can be used more than once. This, depending on how difficult the content is, could potentially be a game changer. So some of these are quite significant. Now, the good thing about this is that I can drop down a crafting bench in your base and give you this advantage if I built it. I can also make a pickaxe with this bonus and give it to you. So if we're in the same hive or in the same warband, technically we can share these bonuses and give them to each other. Same thing with something like this. Like they've added these new little items that can sit in your backpack. This one is a portable rainwater collector that restores hydration and can give me a chance to get free dirty water, pure water, or acid every minute. So I can make like 5 or 6 of these, hand them out to all my friends, and now suddenly everybody has one. So there's merit to coordinating with your friends on what specializations to go for to try to cover each other and to give each other all the bonuses possible, right? So it does sort of encourage teamwork. But if you're a solo player or your friends aren't as active or whatnot, some of these changes could be quite significant and be like a fairly decent disadvantage / advantage for you over other players, and some are potentially like quite big. So I'm going to be curious to see how this shakes out. On one hand, I think this is cool. I like the diversity of it. I even kind of like the fact that it's a little bit random. I'm hoping that there won't get to a point where some of these are so good that it becomes like, if you don't have it, re-roll and do it again and do it again and do it again. There does seem to be a limit on how many times you can do it, because you do get the resource needed to reset it from the seasonal goals. It's the specialization technical cleaning fluid. You only get 5 of these, and as far as I've been able to tell, you cannot craft it. So, and it even says in the description you can reset it up to 5 times. So if you don't get the ideal stuff, yeah, technically you can reset it, but of course it's tied to the progression of the season. So if you're here, as I currently am, and I get ones I don't like and I want to reset it, I have to wait until here to reset it again. And then I'm gonna have to wait another like week or 2 weeks or whatever for this phase, another week, 2 weeks to this phase. You know, like, you see where I'm going with this. Like, it's gonna take a long time, and you still may not get the ones that you want, or hopefully even potentially are necessary to be competitive or whatever. So far, it doesn't feel like it's going to be like that, like it's going to be that severe, but you know, I'll try to keep an eye on it, and if it does, you know, maybe we'll do an updated thoughts video on it and hopefully provide more feedback to the developers on that change potentially being a bad one. But for right now, I like it. I think it's cool. I think it adds some flavor and gives you a reason to coordinate with your hive and your friends, and, you know, pick different bonuses and stuff like that. There have been some area changes as well, some of which we've already made videos on, where they've moved the chest around or shuffled some of the layouts of areas and things like that. Nothing like huge, you know, not like game changing, like, oh, it's a whole new area now. It's just the mystery chest, or as they're calling it, mystical crate in the latest translation, may have just moved or swapped places with a weapon crate or something like that. I feel like as they go through and they try to refine areas and make it in some cases so all the stuff isn't condensed into one part of the zone, that you got to explore like the whole area, which I think is a good thing. Like some of the towns, the mystery box and the weapon crate would be like literally right next to each other, or like the elite would be like right there next to all of it, so you would do like 4 objectives in like one spot, you know, and it was like, well, what's the point of all the rest of this whole area? So I think that's what they're going for with that. You know, nothing crazy, but you know, it is a change, and it is worth mentioning. They have also made changes to hives. The maximum amount of people in a hive is now 8. It used to be 4. They've doubled it, which I think is also a good change. Makes it easier to get more of your friends in. 4 always felt a little bit kind of small, but at the same time, you don't have to have 8, right? They also have, in addition to upping the amount of people that can be in a hive, they've changed the way bases work within the hive itself and with your friends. In CBT2, each hive had a designated hive base that everybody in the hive could teleport to and could use as a sort of community base. And then you could have your individual base and do with it what you will. I liked this system. I thought it was pretty cool to have everybody operating out of one base and working together and like pooling all their resources. Technically, you could still do that, because you can go in and allow and deny permissions to your base to your friends, as seen here. I can give them access to my facility. I can give them the ability to freely build and destroy my base, or I can give them just access to my storage. So technically you can still kind of replicate the functionality of a Hive base, but the big change that they've made is you cannot teleport to your friends' bases or to a designated Hive base anymore. So basing together is not as convenient as it was before. I'm kind of confused why they did this, to be completely honest. I didn't really understand why you couldn't teleport to your friends' bases even in the previous beta, and I certainly didn't understand why you couldn't share access to your storage and your facilities in the last beta. So they changed that, which I think was a great change. I think allowing your friends to have access to your base just makes sense. But then they also removed the teleportation feature, which means that you're no longer really able to operate out of one base in a convenient way. So I'm very confused and conflicted on that change. It's like on one hand, they did exactly what I wanted, and on the other hand, they like created another new problem, and they took away one of the more unique and interesting things that this game had, which is, you know, the Hive base mechanic. So I'm kind of hoping they reverse that, and they either make it so you can designate a Hive base that everybody can work out of, or they just make it so you can teleport to your friends' bases at will. I think that would be the logical way to do it, just let you teleport to your friends' bases. I don't really understand the point of the restrictions, to be completely honest. All you really got to do, in my opinion, let me turn down this music volume. All you really got to do, in my opinion, is just make it so that teleporting to a friend's base is the same cooldown as teleporting to your own base, which I believe is 5 minutes. Just let me teleport to my friends' bases. There's already plenty of teleportation points all around the map. It's not like being able to teleport to a friend's base is some huge advantage or circumvents any kind of system of the game in a significant way. So I'm hoping they just reverse that, is basically what it comes down to. On the other hand, though, they did make it so that basing near each other is easier. 3 of my teammates are all based up here. They did make it so that you can literally like snap your bases together. I built next to one of my Hive mates earlier in the game, and my base literally snapped next to his so that we were side by side. This wasn't as easy to do before, partially because bases had a circular territory control around them, which I always thought was kind of weird. But they have now changed that so that your base now has a square territory control around it, which makes a whole lot more sense for filling up that area. So now your base can literally snap together. But they did also make the change that is worth mentioning, where your territory size has to be upgraded through the mimetic tree to get more territory control. So if you're built right next to your Hive mates and then you go to buy this upgrade, you won't be able to, because your territory is now going to conflict with their territory. So you do have to be a little bit careful with this if you build right on top of each other. But it is a change. I think it's a good change to be able to like build much closer together. It does mean you can sort of like populate all your bases together if you'd like. But again, without the ability to teleport between them, it feels like you almost have to all huddle together if you want to do anything approximating a Hive base anymore. But trying to fit 8 bases around each other would be kind of difficult. So it's still like an odd change. Like I don't know. They seem at odds with what they want to do. But you know, that is what it is. I hope they tweak it a little bit. You can give permission also to friends as well as Hive mates. So this person that I met on the game who is not in my Hive, I can give him access to my facilities. I can give him access to my free build if I want him to be able to mess with my base. I can give him storage facility access. You know, you can it's cool that you have that much control over it. Like, that is a good change. I like that, being able to like even give it to friends and individually tweak these things, because let's be honest, you may be in a Hive with a bunch of people that you don't know that well, so you may not want them to have full access to your base. Maybe you don't even want them to have access to your storage, right? Because you're afraid they're going to like yoink your resources when you're offline. being able to customize that, I think, is a good thing. I just think that teleporting also needs to be a part of that. But it is easy to do it right here from the Hive thing or from the friends list to make these changes. Some people didn't know how to do that. We did make a video about it. There also have been other building changes that I quite enjoy, in addition to the square territory setup and the lack of hive bases. They also have added the ability to just go into like free mode and fly around your base. You can do all the building and everything from that free mode. Whoops, I hit the wrong button. You can do all the building and everything from that free mode if you would like. I think it's a very easy way to do it. You know, just kind of show how this works. You know, like it attaches and everything just like normal. I can fly around over here. It makes like doing wiring and stuff a lot easier because you can quickly move between floors and attach things to like your solar panel and come down and like wire it down the wall and all that kind of stuff like that without having to actually run around on your character and like, you know, finagle the camera and stuff like that. Once you get used to this, it's the only way to build. You can also go into this mode when you place your base and you move it around and stuff like that. It's very easy to just plop your base down and get this like sky view of it and kind of see exactly where it is, which was one of the big problems in CBT2 when it came to moving your base. It was hard to tell where exactly you were placing it and what the orientation was and stuff like that. So this was a huge positive change that I very much love, and I'm glad that they added that in there. That brings us to something else that I think is worth talking about a little bit, which is Eternal Land is a thing they've added, which this is basically just a big sandbox where you can now go in and build and mess around with construction and stuff like that with no limits. You can go much higher into the skybox. You can build your base any size that you want, and resources are much easier to acquire. Some of these buildings like this were here when you get here. There are some like pre-made buildings just to kind of fill out the world. You can see over there where I was experimenting with the base design and doing it here first. Another change that I kind of want to note that I'm a little sad that they changed, or at least removed temporarily, I don't know if it'll be back, is you can't like build this base like this and make it into a blueprint and then pull that into the regular world, which is what I was hoping you were going to be able to do. That you could jump in here, build your base, and then pull it out and just plunk it down in the real world. Seemingly you can't do that as of yet. I hope that's something they change, because I think that would be really neat. But Eternal Land is a cool concept. You can also similarly go into flight mode here without any restrictions, because you're not limited to your territory. So you can just fly around this whole area. It's pretty scenic. It's a pretty cool looking area. It's like a little island. And they say, like, they advertise it as like, you can build whatever you want to build, you know, make a huge city, make multiple buildings, you know, let your imagination like run wild, which is a cool concept to have. It also is a place where all the stuff that doesn't carry over between seasons will go. So if there's season specific, you know, like buildings or cosmetics or something like that, they will come here and be preserved in this land, even though they can't carry over into the next season. You can even do Eternal Land specific building, like trees and shrubs and stuff like that. You can move these trees around and all that. I imagine it's something kind of like the dev tools being handed over to you, like games used to give you like access to the map maker or something like that. It feels like it's something kind of approximating that, where like now you have the ability to do something like what the devs do and just like build without restrictions and place trees and do all that kind of stuff. And you can also come over here and give your friends, you know,
build stuff here,
access to your stuff, you know, and let them come in and view your stuff and do whatever you want to do. So that's a pretty cool change. I do like that. And piggybacking off of that, I can show you, they've sort of revealed the first little bit of information about what is going to carry over between these seasons, because that's been a question that's been on my mind. It's cool they're doing this seasonal content, but what's going to carry over, what isn't? It's kind of roughly translated. It's some of it's a little hard to understand, but they have revealed some information about that, which is here on this screen. It says transfer across seasons. When completing this season's experience and signing up for the new season service, the various types of resources acquired during this season will be inherited according to the following rules. The rules will be directly inherited to the new season: Star Chrome, Star Source, Mitsuko's Mark, Stellar Planula, Active Sproutlet, Equip Blueprint and its star, Blueprint Fragments, Weapon Accessory, Mod, Furniture Formula, except Mimetic Unlock Part, Fashion Appearance, Expression Action, Name Card Title, Character Pinch Face Data, Building House Blueprint, Main Line, Branch Line, Journeys, Completion Progress, and Friends Relationship. These are all the things that will, at least as far as it looks like this is saying, will carry over between seasons. Some of this is roughly translated, but a lot of it does make sense, right? Like weapon accessories won't have to be unlocked more than once. You'll go around, you'll unlock them, they'll carry over. I think that's a good thing. Mods, I'm guessing they mean like weapon mods. This one, I'm not sure. Like, if you're coming into a new season with already having legendary mods, this could be like a big deal. Same thing with blueprint fragments. If you're coming over already with a bunch of guns unlocked that other people in the season don't have, this could be a huge advantage. You know, both of these could be huge advantages. Mitsuko's marks are the currency you get from the seasonal stuff. Furniture Formula, except Mimetic Unlocked. I think this is referring to the ones that you can like buy from shops and stuff like that. I don't see that as being like a problem. They're mostly like decorative stuff. It doesn't really make a huge difference, but at least it's going to carry over, so you don't have to rebuy it every season. Fashion appearances, cosmetics, I assume this is talking about. Expression action, these are emotes. Name card titles, I think these are like things you can unlock for certain achievements and stuff like that. Character pinch face data, I believe, is referencing your character's design, like your character customization. They say building house blueprint here, which makes me think maybe the blueprint thing is going to come back that I was just mentioning in Eternal Land. I'm hoping that's the case, because I did think this was a really neat, unique feature that Once Human had. So maybe they just needed to make some changes to this. I'm not sure what mainline, branch line, journey, completion, progress means. I think that's just meaning like the journey stuff, but like that carrying over seems kind of odd, because they do give you money and XP for doing those. So I would think you would want those to reset to get those bonuses again. I don't know though. And friends relationship, this one's also kind of interesting, because I'm not sure how that's going to work if people like aren't on the same server as you next time. Are they just going to remove those people from your friends list? Or are they still going to be, is there going to be some sort of ability to talk to people even if they're on a different server? Not sure how that's going to work exactly. The following content will be transferred to Eternal Lands Depot. Before the start of the next season, the player can strategically choose to carry some of the resources to open a new journey together to provide their own growth. Weapon, armor, regular resources such as materials, medicine, bullets, etc. So this is basically saying all the weapons you craft, all the armor you craft, all the resources you gather are going to be transferred to Eternal Land. But it does say before the start of the next season, the player can strategically choose to carry some of the resources to open a new journey together to provide their own growth. I'm guessing what that is saying is that you'll be able to take a certain amount of these resources and maybe even some weapons and armor with you into the new season. This could be significant. Resources kind of less so. This is just sort of like, oh, that'll just be a nice little like boost that just kind of like gets you rolling a little bit faster. Weapons and armor carrying over, depending on if there is limitations on this, could be significant. Much like this blueprint carrying over up here could be significant. If I'm jumping into a new season with a gun that isn't unlocked until in game and I already have it, that could be a huge advantage. especially when it comes to PvP and how they handle that. Things like these blueprint fragments and weapons and armor being able to carry over partially make me think this might be another reason why they're moving away from open world constant PvP. Can you imagine how clustery and terrible it's going to feel if you log into an open world constant PvP game day one of a new season wipe, and there's already people running around sniping you from like super far away, and you don't even have a sniper rifle yet? It's not even possible for you to get one. You know, things like that I think would also significantly dampen open world PvP enjoyment if it were always on. But some of this stuff being roughly translating the way it is, it's hard to say for sure if that's what it means. It doesn't mention any restrictions. I'm hoping they don't just like totally like doors open on stuff like that, and you can just come in with like a legendary weapon already crafted that's like tier 4 or something like that. You know, like that would be a huge balancing issue. Excuse me. It also says, in addition to the above, the rest of the data, such as level, energy link, map, and stronghold exploration progress, season challenge, task progress, etc., will not be inherited. So these things will not carry over. You will not retain your level. You will not retain your currency. You will not retain the map unlock, fog of war progression that you've essentially made. Your stronghold exploration progress, which is like the bosses and stuff like that, will not carry over, and obviously seasonal challenge stuff will have to be done again. Common research test season inheritance rules do not represent the final version. We will continue to optimize the season inheritance experience based on feedback. So there's your disclaimer, your asterisk, your CYA. None of this is final. This is a beta. They are looking for feedback. That's why we're making this video. But it's nice to get a glance into what they're thinking with these rules and what's going to carry over and what may not carry over. It's good to actually see that and get an idea of what they're thinking. I can see some potential problems with some of this stuff, but we need more information. We need to be able to see exactly what that means. And maybe we'll get a chance to find out. I'm not really sure. I've heard some rumors that this may be the final beta test they do before release. I don't know if that's going to be the case or not. I think they're currently slated for Q3 of this year for the game to release. I would not be shocked if they do not meet that date. I do think the game still needs a good amount of work. It is very good, but there are still a lot of rough things that need to be polished up. There's still some quality of life changes they could easily make. I still think there's some things that need more testing. Translation is extremely rough still at this point, even though that is generally kind of usually one of the last things you refine. But there's still Chinese characters in the game. There's really rough translations, as you just saw on the stuff we just read. Some things are difficult to even understand what they mean still at a certain point, like this SMG, this 25% to power surge, and then after defeat, power surge triggers a factor of +2% based on weapon trigger chance for 3 seconds. What exactly does that mean? Reload after power surge, trigger factor +30% based on weapon trigger chance, continuous 3 seconds. That one's a little bit easier to understand, but it's still like pretty rough, right? Like you sort of have to sit here and like translate what exactly this is saying and experiment with it and try to figure stuff out. And those are some of the ones that are at least like obvious. Some like this pistol, for example, still entirely in Chinese. I don't know what any of that says. I'd have to pull out my phone and Google Translate it to even have a decent idea of what exactly this is referencing. So a lot of this stuff still needs work. And Q3 might be a little ambitious for them to get all this stuff put together. I don't know if they're planning on doing like an early access type of thing where it's like we're going to release, but we're not really released, quote unquote. We'll just have to wait and see. But I don't think the game is going to be quite as ready as I would like to see it be, but you know, we'll see. I think they should do probably 1 or 2 more beta tests even before Q3 personally, but you know, I'm not a developer. I don't work at the company, so my opinion is, of course, just my opinion. But that pretty much covers everything I think I wanted to cover for the initial thoughts video that I wanted to make. I think there is a wealth of really, really good changes here. I think the developers are listening to feedback because many of these changes are things that I wanted to see changed from the last test. And frankly, I'm surprised at the sheer volume of changes that they made, even to core systems. And I'm wondering if that stuff changed so dramatically because they were already working on it, or because they got feedback and changed it in the couple of short months since the last test. Either way, I'm very encouraged by what I've seen. And the negative things that I'm talking about in this video are massively outweighed by the positive. Some of those negatives do have potentially massive implications, however. So I did want to make this video and kind of get this information out there. And, you know, of course, hear from you guys. What is your opinion? Do you disagree with anything I've said here? Do you agree with anything I've said here? Feel free to drop your comments in the down below. I do read everything. I do try to respond to everything. I know I'm a pretty small YouTuber still at this point, and we do stream over on Twitch. But, you know, the support that I've gotten from the Once Human community has been great. I've gotten a lot of subs. I've gotten a lot of positive comments. I've had a lot of really good interactions in this community, which is great. And I appreciate all the love and support that I've gotten from you guys. I hope to continue to make videos on this game as well as other games. So, you know, hopefully I'll see you guys out there. I'm on the PvP servers. I'm on Star Strike A. If you're out here on this server, feel free to add me on your friends list. Say hey. If you've got video ideas you want to see, feel free to DM me either on Discord. I'm Rev Brucifer there, or hit me up in game. I'm always down to talk to people and take in suggestions and feedback on videos and ideas. And I hope you guys have a good one out there, man. It's been a pleasure. Hope you guys have a great time. Take it easy. Happy hunting.